enhanced. So we're waiting for our panelist. The panel here is ongoing funding models and subscription models for writers. So if you don't want to learn how to get money, you should move along. Fantastic. Yeah. Oh yeah. Are you okay?
I'm in the conversation.
It's in the bell ringer too.
All right. Hi. So I am Margot Atwell. I'm the director of publishing at Kickstarter and the newly launched DRIP, which is one of the funding models in question. DRIP is an ongoing funding platform that we launched in November, and it's still in its private, public, but invitation only public beta. So you can pledge to a DRIP, but we have a very limited number of people who are on DRIP right now. But I wanted to make sure that we encompassed all of the different ways that creatives are raising funds and building community in an ongoing way. So here to help me are my three lovely panelists.
Hello, my name is Pablo Defendini. I'm the publisher of Fireside Magazine. We started life as a Kickstarter project, and we've done a few other different crowdsourced funding mechanisms like Patreon and whatnot. We're actually on DRIP now for our, sorry, I'm still catching my breath.
So I didn't mean to make you
That's
go
okay.
first.
I chose the seat, you know, I should have known. Yeah, we started a DRIP recently for our upcoming print magazine, which launches in July. Yeah, we're all about the crowdfunding and the different sources of income for our publication.
My name is Robinette Kowal. So I'm a writer, an audiobook narrator, and a puppeteer. So I have 3 different income streams, which means that it's very uneven all the time. And so I use Patreon and DRIP. I have used Kickstarter and some other, then also done fundraising for different organizations as well. So those are kind of the angles that I will be discussing today.
Hi, I'm Merc Rustad. I'm a primarily short fiction author, and I have used Patreon and currently am working running a Kickstarter for an anthology project called Robot Dinosaurs, which is exactly what it says on the tin.
All right. So one thing that I would love to hear from all of you is, obviously writers have lots of different projects, different types of things and different ways of relating to the audience. What are some good examples of projects that work for an ongoing funding model or a subscription model?
So, so one of the things for me with the ongoing funding subscription model is that it feels like for me it's more about the relationship with the creator than about a specific project. So then what I'm trying to figure out is how to enhance and foster that relationship with my readers. So for me, I wind up doing a lot of classes or behind the scenes stuff to try to foster that engagement.
Yeah, for us it's a little different, although the core of it is the same, you know, building that relationship with your audience. And that's one of the things that all of the crowdfunding platforms have really enabled, you know, the fact that I can actually, you know, speak to an audience and build a relationship with them over time and build that loyalty. In terms of the value proposition and the value exchange there for us, it's a little different because we're not just one person, right? It's a magazine, and we have to, where when you're an individual author, there's a lot more of that kind of, you can build this relationship and you can kind of, in a certain way, like provide access to yourself and to your fans. It's a little different with us. I think the onus on us is more to provide that kind of physical reward, right? So like we do a lot of you know, the monthly ebook that you get, and now the print magazine, and like pins and things like that that help kind of encourage people to support us in a way that perhaps, you know, you don't have to do as hard a sell for a person who is already a fan of yours, whereas I have to be like, this is a magazine that includes a lot of the people that you are fans of, but you know, we're not that. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
Oh, Could you just repeat the question? I think I missed part of it.
I was talking about what kinds of projects work for ongoing funding, and if there's a certain vehicle that works better for certain projects.
Yeah, so I think that with like an individual author, definitely building that, like they've said, building that relationship between sort of the fan base and the creator. So the engagement factor is definitely something to keep in mind. And I've found so far, like with our Robot Dinosaurs project, it is an anthology, so I have 20 different authors. So it's much more about selling people on the idea that, hey, you really do want to read awesome stories about robot dinosaurs. So kind of selling them on the whole project, and then also kind of indicating like, yeah, it includes a bunch of really awesome authors that we are publishing one story every Friday, the beginning of May through August, and then they will be all collected into one print and ebook collection at the end of the cycle, basically. So it's sort of two different things that I'm kind of working on at the moment.
So in the page of your Kickstarter, your Patreon, your Ko-fi, although Ko-fi doesn't really use pages quite the same way, right?
Yeah, I think Ko-fi is more of a micropayments almost. So it's just, hey, here's $2 to buy yourself a cup of coffee.
Nice. But so in the more sort of subscription long-term ones, how do you describe what you're doing in the page and encourage people through text and videos and things like that to want to get on board?
So we do different things on different platforms. And that depends on a lot of different factors, right? Like it depends obviously on what you're trying to achieve with that particular platform, what your audience is on there, and whatnot, what rewards you're offering. For instance, on our Patreon page, which is the bulk of our subscribers, of our supporters, it's very straightforward and very text-based, right? We have a very brief description of our magazine, and we kind of lay out our value proposition for it, and we have our rewards and whatnot, and the social aspect of it, where like posts and things happen, isn't as lively as on other platforms. It's much more mechanical, just due to the ways that we've developed it. There's no real, not necessarily really a thesis behind it, versus Drip, for instance, where we have a video on there which introduces people to what we're trying to do with the magazine, and we have more engaging periodic posts where we're talking about the process of putting it together and how it's coming and all these things, which feels very important for that, given that we're basically like launching ahead of time. We launched the Drip page in, I think it was like either late January or early February, something like that. And our first issue doesn't come out till July, so we have a lot of work to do to kind of, first of all, convince people that we're legit, right? Like we're not just gonna disappear with your money, and never deliver on this fancy pants book that we said we'd make, but also bring people along on our journey, right? Like these people are very invested in us. They were like, I will start giving you $10 a month for this thing that's not even going to show up on my doorstep till July. Like that's a big leap of faith, and that's a big piece of trust that they've placed in us. So we need to really keep them informed and let them know how it's going, and keep them reassured that this is going to happen, right? And also excited so that they spread the word and they bring other people to help us.
So I also use different platforms on Patreon. I find that it is often a little more conversational, the interactions with the people. So I made a deliberate choice then when I was going into Drip. It was like I wanted to offer something different. And I did think about just repeating the content on both pages, but generally what I find is that people will gravitate towards a platform because of the community, the kind of interaction. And so with Drip, I tend to be a little more structured with my posts. I tend to be a little bit more process oriented, and that as a result is what I'm selling on it. So everything that I put up, the video and all of the different levels are, let me show you. It's basically, let me invite you behind the curtain, and I'll tell you how I do the things that I do. Whereas Patreon tends to be, even though I have classes that are available, it tends to be more, hey, I'm Mary. How are you doing? Look, now you know me. And you can read things ahead of time because you know me. So it's more of a neighborhood feel. Yeah. Whereas the other feels, I think you actually described it best for me, that it was trying to create the magazine that is perfectly curated for that person. And so I'm like, so I'm thinking about it more in terms of being magazine articles when I post things, most of the time.
Yeah, for me, the Patreon is just for personal work, so it's definitely a much more low-key, sort of friendly, hey, you know me, we're all friends here, kind of much more casual in tone and posts. And I'm a little, like, I haven't been posting as much, it's day job related stuff, but I feel like if I post saying, hey, sorry, this is going to be a little bit late, it's not quite as, it doesn't feel like I definitely feel bad about that because that's me, but it's not like more like with our Kickstarter. It's like every single Friday I want to have a post, the story is released, we do promotion about it. It's very much more business oriented almost. And also for like content, my like Patreon homepage has like a kind of a goofy video that I made, and it's just a lot more like, this is about me, this is what I do. Whereas our Kickstarter page is much more, it does have a video as well. It is a lot more just very distinct description of what we're doing, how we're going to do it, what you get in return, and then links to, as we post stories, there will be links on like the updates and then eventually the main page, so people can see right away that, hey, this is what we're doing, it's going to last all summer, so you kind of know what you're getting ahead of time and going in. So you can decide if you want to continue to back it or if it's maybe not your thing, so you have available content right there to be able to sort of test drive almost.
It's interesting to hear the two of you who are on Drip talk about it being a little more formal, because Drip is still in beta, and because we only have about 100 creators on there so far. The sort of best practices and community culture vibe are still developing. Mm-hmm. We really wanted to create it as an extremely flexible tool for creators across our 15 categories on Kickstarter. So not just writers and publishers, but craftspeople and dancers and musicians. So it'll be really interesting in the upcoming months to see how that develops, and also how the communities cross-pollinate each other. So a couple of you have mentioned rewards so far, but I would love to hear what are rewards that are working especially well for you, and also what are rewards that you've seen other people offer that you like wish you could steal or have stolen. I won't tell.
So I brought one of the rewards with me. So Drip does this thing where they have the founding period, so you can get people to kind of do an early buy-in, and the founding period you can set how long it's going to be. And so for my founders, I created, this is the International Aerospace Coalition mission patch. And so my founders got this and a Lady Astronaut Club founding member card. And only the people who signed up during that period get those two things. If you go on book tour, you can get one of these, but you will not get the founding membership card. And so I had people who signed up specifically because they were getting something that was the only time and place that they could get it. Which otherwise I think it probably would have been a much slower trickle of, I don't know, a new platform, but they're like, there's a mission patch? What? So that worked really well for me. The other thing that has worked very well for me is teaching classes, and I've seen other people teach classes as well. And those are So this was basically, I think, 5 and up got this, and with the classes it's $25, but you get one of my regular classes, and it's recorded, and you get liner notes afterwards, and there are people who will sign up for that specifically because they want to be taking classes. I've seen other people do a story a month, which I think is an amazing thing and not something that I can do, so I don't even try it. But you?
So we did similar with the founding period and drip, and we offer a which I should be taking delivery of it next week actually to ship out to our backers, a founder's coin. Right, so same deal, but it's like a little like NPR. Like you get that stuff when you support radio shows on NPR as well. So we did that. We've also played around with enamel pins and things like that. One of the things that we did on Patreon, right? So for those of you who don't know, Fireside is like, we're all raving progressive lefties, and we're freaking the hell out about the Trump administration, like you do. So after the election, we put out this special reward tier on Patreon, which was priced high at $20 a month. And what you got was this little enamel pin that we made for the Anti-Fascist Fiction Club, which is kind of a meld between the anti-fascist forks and the Fireside logo. But more importantly, a portion of your pledge at that $20 level went toward 2 organizations, the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center. So it was a way for us to kind of activate that group of people who feel similarly to us and who really wanted to do, because you felt so impotent, right? Like you didn't know what to do, and it was a way for us to kind of try to do something to not just empower our backers to contribute to these things, but also to support some of the organizations that we believe in, and that was really, really successful. It was very much an experiment, and given that the tangible reward was a one-time only thing, we saw a substantial drop-off afterward where people paid $20 for 1 month and then they got their pin and they left. We knew that was going to happen, and we were okay with it. We understood that was going to happen, but that we would still end up better than we were before, and that was definitely the case. So much so that it unlocked a bunch of things that we could do in the second half of the year that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, just in terms of the money that we gathered.
Did you find that those people dropped off completely or just dropped to a lower tier?
So a combination. I don't have numbers off of the top of my head, but if I had to speculate, I'd say about half of them, a little less than half of them dropped off entirely. I'd say about a quarter of them dropped off to a lower level, and then we still have some that are still sending us $20 a month, which is really cool. And one of the things that we've done now is, a couple of weeks ago, I messaged these people specifically, and I was like, listen, you've been sending us $20 a month for nothing, for a year. I strongly encourage it. We just revamped all of our tiers to account for our print publication. We now simplified things, so anyone backing us, on RIP at the $10 level or higher will get the print magazine. So I extended. I told these people, listen, you've been giving us this amount of money for a year. That's amazing. We're really grateful, but we encourage you to move to this other tier. You'll get more bang for your buck, and we're okay getting less money from you. At this point, that was kind of free money, and you get to a point where you're like, I'm not providing you value, so move over to this thing, which you'll save money, you'll get more for it, we'll feel better, and it will contribute to creating a longer term relationship based on trust and with our people.
But you had people who didn't make the move, didn't?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're still there, which is thank you, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, on Patreon it's a lot of, it's just digital content basically. It's original fiction. So the tiers, basically I had designed and launched my Patreon as a way for people who already basically like my work and just want to support me, and then I feel like I'm giving them something for what they're giving me. So it was sort of an exchange. But with our Kickstarter, definitely the most popular reward tier we have is the $30 level, which gets people a physical print copy of the book in paperback, an ebook copy, and then four postcards that will have prints of the original artwork that we will be having on the site throughout the year. And that's been really cool to see.
So I just want to tag on something that you both said, which is that the people who stay on the $20 level, who just want to keep sending you money, even though there's a better value, and they like your work and want to support. So this is the thing where, having done fundraising in other sectors, that there is a narrative for fundraising. That people want to be a hero. And if you can explain to them why funding you is going to make them be a hero, they will give you money, often without wanting a reward in return. And this is one of the things, like I have there's a thing where you can sign up for something, and the number of times that I have someone who will pick a tier, but then say that they don't want a reward. Mm-hmm. And that's because they want to be the hero, because they want to support the arts. And this is really the thing about the crowdfunding models of supporting arts, is that these are people who value the arts and want to support it. So one of the things that we do with, I forgot that we also do have a Patreon with writing excuses, but one of the tiers that we have with writing excuses, and I have a similar tier with my Patreon is, with writing excuses, it's a tier. With Patreon, it was if I hit a funding level. But we have the $20 tier, and then there's the $25 tier, and the $25 tier is exactly the same tier, but we will take that extra $5 and put it directly into our scholarship account. And we have a ton of people who are like, not only will I sign up for that, I'll give you $30. And there's one person who's like, here's $50 a month, and that extra money goes into the scholarship thing, and that's why they're doing it. So it is. If you understand that narrative, it's a very, very powerful tool. And as writers, you know how to use a narrative.
Yeah, I've seen this with some other Kickstarter drip creators as well. There's a bicycle-powered mobile library out in Portland called Street Bikes, and they have these little boxes that become sort of stand-up libraries, and they're on the backs of bicycles, and they bike around to people who are unhomed in Portland, and they lend them books. They say, if you can't return this, that's fine. And they actually have a library card for the people. They sign their names. So they joined Drip, and the rewards are basically just, you get kind of newsletters or updates, things like that. But their founding membership reward was you get an honorary library card. And so I think, they have the $3, $7 and higher tiers. I love seeing what they're doing, because they're using what you said, a narrative storytelling, to make me feel like a hero for giving them, like, I don't know, $3 or $7 a month. And so it's really cool to get a sort of visible response to the money that you're giving. And I think that had been sort of a traditional fundraising version. You'd get like a letter from someone and a picture of the person you were helping. But honestly, these days, like, I just feel like I don't want mail. I just want you to use my money for the thing.
Yeah. There's to add on to your point, you'd be surprised where that threshold is at the high end. Holy smokes. Yeah. So back in December, Patreon made some changes which affected how people got charged for money, and a lot of people were upset about it, and a lot of people started dropping their pledges. And let me tell you, there were 3 nights in December that I did not freaking sleep, because we just started bleeding people, and I freaked out, and I realized that I'd realized it before, but just it drove it home like diversify your revenue streams, right? And we had been talking about drip before, and I was like, okay, I want to get in on that. And I also set up, our own direct subscription thing on the website. And in this kind of weird panic fugue state that I was in, where I was like, I've got to stanch the bleeding. A friend of mine, I was putting this together, and I was putting together the different subscription, tiers on our own website. And a friend of mine was like, dude, just, put in $100 tier. It's like, what? What do you mean $100? Yeah, $100 a month. Do it, man. It's not gonna hurt, whatever. I have a $100 subscriber. It is a person who you would all know who they are, and they are very much interested in supporting people, and they want nothing in return. They send us $100 a month, and who'd have known?
Yeah. Yeah, so we did Kickstarter to take a puppet show to Worldcon, because I'm a puppeteer, as you do, and we had someone who just saw that we were close and was like, you know what, I'm just going to tip you over. But the amount that they needed to tip us over was $575, and they're just like, here you go. I don't want to return.
I had a person who, in the throes of this Patreon fiasco, literally emailed me. It was like, how much are you down for the month? And I was like, this much. And they were like, here's this much. And that bought me a month for me to be able to, get my bearings.
Yeah,
it's the hero again.
Yeah, that's the power of the community just coming together is awesome.
I am so thrilled to hear that. And what you mentioned about diversifying revenue streams, I hear this again and again, because sometimes companies will make decisions, and whether there's ill intent or not, it might impact the way people, especially when it's your livelihood. I think it's really critical that you have multiple streams of revenue, which is why I love to see hybrid authors, because then you've got your eggs in different baskets. So earlier, Mary, we were talking about scalability of rewards, and I think that this is something that's really important to think about is, does it make sense to have an unlimited reward? Do you want to cap a reward? How do you think about that? And have any of you ever had a misstep where a reward took off and it ruined your life?
Yes. Which is why I feel like scalability is a really important thing to talk about. So the first and the only Kickstarter that I have run, I was like, you know what? I'm a puppeteer, and I've just made this puppet, and it's a really stupid, simple, easy puppet, and it takes me about an hour to make. So so I'll say $60 because that's it's all material that I just it's random stuff. There's a pencil in it, okay, and it's an hour of work, and so if I do the math, and I do my usual math, which is that I always, when I figure out how much to charge for something, I double the amount of time that I think it's going to take, and then I add a 10% 10% administration fee on it, in case I can't do it. Then I can afford to hire someone and still make a profit. So so I priced them at $60. At the time, my going rate was 25. It is more than that now. And I was like, this will be fine. That was stupid. It was incredibly stupid, because the thing that I did not account for when I was doing that math was that I didn't account for the fact that I needed that money to pay for other things. So I really just accounted for the cost of the reward itself, and not for the things that I needed to spend to actually make, which meant that when I did not have time to make the reward, because we then moved, and I attempt to hire someone, I just lost money on that reward level. Like, that reward level was not a successful reward level. It was a very important learning lesson. And also, I still have some weasels, those puppets that I owe to people 7 years later. Sorry. I've made the heads. So there are a pile of weasel heads on my back porch. So that's one end of the problem. The other end of the problem is if you do a reward like a class, and you think, okay, if I do this reward and I have X number of people, then I'm going to be making this amount of money per hour to do this class, and you get fewer than that, but you're still committed to doing the thing. So those are the two ends of the scalability that I'm like, you have to think about these things.
Yeah, before we, as I was planning the Robot Dinosaurs Kickstarter, I was definitely looking into both successful and unsuccessful Kickstarters. Like, if we make a specific reward tier of, like, say, a handmade dinosaur, I am capping it at, like, 5. Because if that, for some reason, takes off, there's no way I would be able to make and ship and do all this other work. So it was definitely looking into, okay, so if for some reason a specific tier takes off, does this involve extra labor and cost for me to fulfill? Whereas like our print book, the tiers that have print books, once we get all the orders in, it'll be essentially, so let's say I have 200 people had pledged at a level that gets a paperback book. Well, then I have like, okay, so I'm doing an order for, 250 books or whatever, and I've already accounted for the printing costs, shipping costs, and admin and miscellaneous labor for that. So even if I don't know the exact number that I'll need to print later, I have enough, at least accounted for what will go into producing this reward. So I'm not like suddenly, have to make 100 stuffed dinosaurs for people, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think I want to underline a couple things that you said. The idea of having the reward cost eat up all of the money, that's a huge thing that I see a lot of the time. So I'm a huge fan of not ruining your own life with rewards for Kickstarter, Drip, and other things. So if you think a reward might ruin your life, don't offer it or cap it. Also, do make sure that the price you're getting for it is high enough to make it worthwhile to the project. The other thing is when you're planning out rewards, especially if you're doing physical objects, there's an origination cost and a unit cost, and those things are different. So for example, you mentioned your postcards, and doing one more incremental postcard is basically free, but each postcard design costs something, and if you only have one backer at that $30 level, then you end up in the hole for it. And of course, if you're doing the postcards anyway as a marketing tool, that's great, but if you're planning out a project, really do think about like, okay, here's the origination cost, here's the unit cost. Does this reward look like it's going to put me in the hole versus ahead? If it does, maybe rethink. Because ultimately, a lot of people really do want the thing you're making, or they want to help you make that thing. And so you don't have to offer really fancy rewards. Very often, people will pledge if you have a tote bag or a mug or something that'll ruin your life, but they'll also pledge if you have the book itself.
Yeah. No, yeah, don't, I guess just kind of highlighting that, like, don't underestimate the power of the person who just wants to support your work, without necessarily getting something back in return.
So one super important part of any ongoing funding model situation is how do you spread the word about it? What works well and what works less well?
Okay, so this is one of the things that is tricky to answer because I announced it on Twitter and I sent it through my newsletter, but I already have an audience. And so one of the things that you have to do when you're doing this, if you are early career, is that you have to tap into your audience, but you also have to tap into the audience of friends. You have to tap into a larger network. The thing that will sell something most across every platform is word of mouth. So trying to do word of mouth. The other thing, and I'm going to come back to the fact that I said I sent it out to my newsletter. Regardless of what platform you are on, you should have a newsletter, even if it is very slow building, because in addition to diversifying your income, you also do want to have a direct line to your audience. So that if something happens, like one of the things that happened to a number of people when people were leaving Patreon with that fascinating decision that they made, was that the creators no longer had contact information for those people who had been loyal supporters. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you have a newsletter, and you do want to encourage the people who are signing up on whatever platform to also be on the newsletter. But that's basically how I went to my core audience. So Twitter, Facebook, newsletter, and my blog. Those were the things I did.
I started to address that issue. I got burned by that badly with the Patreon thing. I was like, I want these people to not leave, and if they're not on Patreon, I want them somewhere else. And I've started just on the first of the month, as part of my chores for fulfilling, rewards or whatever, download a CSV of my backers on every platform and just keep it on my drive, because you never know. And that's so valuable, like having that direct line. And I don't do anything with that information, right? Like I have other ways of gathering information. I have a mailing list, and people opt into that. Like I'm not doing anything nefarious with that stuff. But in the event that something happens, like I don't know, the servers blow up or something, right? Like I have that information on my end, and that doesn't happen to me again.
Yeah, I found that various social media platforms, just having a variety of ways to reach people was really valuable. Like Twitter is definitely what we've seen the most traction on, and that works well because it's like these little bite-size bits of information, so you can do it several times a day, different wording, and just kind of keep the word out there. And like newsletter, really great idea. And then I also found that just having someone else to help manage the social media output is such a lifesaver. I had a couple of people involved with the project sort of took over the social media outreach element because I was just unable to do it due to time and work schedules. So that was I'm so grateful for them for helping me out in that.
So a few other things that I've seen that work really well are cross promotion. Mm-hmm. If you and a friend do similar things, or you and someone you admire are doing similar things but potentially have slightly different audiences, you can do a podcast together, you can do a live stream video, you can do a Twitter chat or AMA, things like that, where you're reaching out into another audience and both of you have benefit from it. Mm. And I've also seen on Kickstarter, sometimes a really successful Kickstarter creator will actually share someone else's project as a way to sort of like forward the wealth and show off other things that are happening that their audience might appreciate. And I think that done well, that expands your audience's world as well, and you can help them discover a new favorite. So it's not just benefiting you and your friend, it's benefiting your readers as well.
It's a thing that when you're part of a community, you have a responsibility to provide, and I'm going to take a bite out of Tim O'Reilly's book, but like you have a responsibility to provide more value than you capture. Basically, you're building a community. You these people are supporting your work, so you want to make sure that what they get from you. No, you want to make sure that what they're giving you is worth what you're giving them. And sometimes what you're giving them isn't necessarily the thing that you're doing, right? Like you just said, you lift up other projects, and you kind of help spread the word about other people that your community members will be interested in, and that helps build that again, that trust, that kind of like, we're not just here to sell to you, we're not just here to take your money, we're here to be part of this community and lift up other things and show you stuff that you're going to be interested in if you like our stuff too.
Yeah, we in puppetry we have a saying: the only competition is a bad puppet show. Because if someone goes to see a puppet show and it's a bad puppet show and it's their first one, they're like, I don't want to see another puppet show. But if they see a good puppet show, they're like, I want to see more puppet shows. And so they'll go see more puppet shows. And so that's what happens when you do cross-promotional stuff, where if you say, and again, it's the word of mouth thing. If I say, hey, you guys, you read my books, you should totally read this other person's books. If you like my stuff, you should totally read this other. And that's why blurbs work on books. But I'm essentially hand selling. And what it's a very crass commercial way to do that, but what I'm essentially doing is I am buying goodwill, or I'm putting goodwill into the bank so that when I need to withdraw later, that it's there. And a lot of times you never need to withdraw, but there's nothing wrong with having that nice nest egg there. There's interest that you earn from doing good work and from being part of the community. So I always, the other one is a rising tide raises all ships. But these are aphorisms because there is a great deal of truth there.
Yeah, and just sometimes just paying it forward is, a great way to just help the entire community, and then people remember that. Like, it's like, oh, this famous person, they're helping out the little guys, and like, that's really cool. So then it just benefits everybody.
Yep. So sort of on the same note, but maintaining momentum over time with posting, with community engagement, with promotion, best practices, tips, suggestions?
It's a tough one. It's tough. And, like you were saying, Merc, it's exhausting. It's a grind, right? And social media in particular, especially Twitter. Like, I love Twitter. I owe my career to Twitter in a very real way. Twitter is a trash fire too. Like, it's funny, and you're using this phrase, whatever. It's exhausting to be on there. It's a lot of work. And when you're doing it for fun as a personal thing, that's awesome because you can take it or leave it as you do. But when your income depends on you being on there all the time, that's a job. And I made the same decision that you did recently and hired someone to help manage this stuff. Unfortunately, I can't just set it and let it go because, it's a little bit more hands-on what we're trying to do. But having someone to help is amazing. Being able to split the load, and not just do it all yourself. Find people who are willing to help you. Try to compensate the people that help you, obviously, try to do revenue shares and whatever if you can. But yeah, try to get help and pace yourselves. My goodness. One of the things that I ran into trouble with our drip campaign at first was I think we launched too early. We were still kind of in the planning stages. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had a very, very clear vision for this print magazine. But I hadn't started walking the walk yet. And, I spent some of the goodwill that you're talking about, and it was a good investment, like I don't regret it. But at the same time, there was a period there of a couple of months where I was like, I don't have stuff. I don't have anything to talk about yet, and it was really frustrating, especially because it was the founders period, and I wanted to kind of like, these are the people who are like, ahead of time, really investing their trust in us. And it was really frustrating to kind of realize that I'd kind of pulled the trigger too early on that and didn't really have enough to give them at first. Eventually we got over the hump, and now we're posting like our status updates, and we're off to the printers, and here's the spread, and look at this thing, and that's wonderful. But at first it was very frustrating, and it was really kind of, I felt really sad about it because you want to provide that value.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just the sort of the long haul it does get very, very exhausting because it's a lot of emotional and mental energy you're putting into like figuring out new ways to say, hey, back our thing, and just connecting with new people and trying not to exhaust your current audience that's, is already behind you, and with just constant updates that they're like, yes, we've seen this, so it's, diversifying. But yeah, with your point about getting help, I found that people are willing to help you out. So it's best to ask. And yeah, compensating them is definitely something I'm doing as well. But yeah, there's like people want to do things and help out, so you can definitely reach out for help when you need it. And I think you'll find that people will come when you call.
So all of that, yes. One thing that I'll say is honesty with your backers in whatever form is perhaps one of the most important things. And I don't mean oversharing. I mean, if you realize that you've bitten off more than you can chew, or you need to make a mistake, recognize that they're there because they want to help you. And so coming back to them and saying, like, this just happened to me this month. On Drip, I'm supposed to do a class with these people once a month. That's it. I'm giving them 1 hour a month. It's not a lot, right? Except that I have to prep the class and all of that, and then my travel this month, I was home for 6 days in April, and they were not consecutive days. It was bad. And I had a little bit of a connectivity problem, which I probably could have fixed, but I was just exhausted. And so I posted, I'm like, I'm really sorry, we are not going to do class tonight because of these things. We're going to reschedule, not in May, we're going to reschedule in June, because my May looks very similar to my April. And, no one quit. Everyone was like, oh, okay. But if I had just blown it off and not shown up, and even though it was last minute, if I'd just blown off and not shown up, that would have been a very different narrative. And this is, again, it's about building the relationships and the trust. And if they can trust me that I'm going to be honest with them, they're gonna give me some time. I can't do that all the time. I do have a responsibility, but still being honest with them is important. The other thing, and this is unfortunately a thing that Drip does not do yet, but I know it is coming, is scheduled posts, which I have on other platforms, because then what I can do is on the days that I have the energy, I can sit down and do all of the posts that I need to do, and then they will just fire on a schedule, and I don't have to think about it on the days that I don't have the energy. Yeah. And that is one of the things, is remembering that my goal with these is not to have a successful crowdfunding platform. My goal is to be able to do the art, and the successful crowdfunding platform allows me to do the art. So if it's getting in the way of me doing the art, I'm doing something wrong there.
There's a thing that I'd add to the general idea that you're putting out there, both of you actually, which is, when it comes to marketing, at least I'm not an obsessive self-promoter. Like I am I am absolutely not from the Midwest. I'm from the Caribbean, but I have this very kind of like thing that is very Midwestern. You don't talk about yourself. You kind of,
I'm from the Midwest, so yes.
In any case, it's tough when you're in a position where you have to market to people to really get over that and really kind of get in the mode of putting the word out and talking about yourself, and bragging really is what you're doing, right, to a certain degree. And that can feel very uncomfortable. One of the things so I was on a Drip hangout with a few Drip creators a month or two ago with Trav, and one of the things that some of the creators on there kind of started saying were like, look, every single person that is backing you desperately wants to hear from you. And it desperately wants to hear from you sounds really dramatic, and perhaps, but it kind of helps put you in the mindset to get over that hump of like, oh, I'm talking about myself. What a jerk, like who wants to hear me blather on about this stuff? Well, the people who are backing you do. Right, that's what I'm saying. Like the people who are backing you do. So you kind of get into that mindset, and it really helps, or at least it's helped me.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And also to what you said earlier, Mary, about the Drip or the Patreon or whatever it is meant to facilitate the art. Absolutely. And I think that one of the strongest strategies I've seen for people continuing to engage and increase the number of people who are following them on Drip or backing them on Drip is mixing up public posts with paid posts, and then sharing the work, the free work on social media and saying, you know, check out my drip. I just added this new story, this new image, etc. You should check this out. And actually, Drip just added a $0 pledge tier that's separate from the public tier. So you can have public posts that anyone can engage with. And then there's the $0 tier, which someone has to subscribe and you get their email address in exchange for that. And that's a little bit, just barely a barrier to entry, but it's a little way to, like, you know, it's not just an open door. It's like they have to pull the handle. But then those $0 pledge tiers, you can share more interesting stuff and encourage them to pledge to that. And then over time, just let people know, hey, I'm posting XYZ new story tomorrow. If you want it, people at the $5 and up tier get it. So it's a way to sort of like show people who are less familiar with your work what you're all about. And then over time, as they get interested in it and more invested in you and your story, they might be more willing to pay. And I think that thinking about it from a long game perspective is really useful, because it's really still early days for everyone on Drip. And I've heard about people who have been on Patreon for years, and year 3 is way better than year 1, because year 1, they're still like, you know, starting from scratch and like seeding the ground.
Honestly, it's early days for Patreon too. Like it, yeah. I mean, it's really when you're in the scrum, you're like, oh my God, Patreon's been around and it's a big hit, and Kickstarter's been around forever. Kickstarter started
9 years.
That's not forever, man. That's not even a decade. And you know, when you're thinking the long game, you have to think in terms of years, and that can be really difficult because it's hard for humans to think that long term. But yeah, it pays off. It really does.
Yeah.
So we have a little under 10 minutes. I wanted to make sure that if you have any questions, we get to that. So anyone, audience questions? In the front here? So the question was, talking about video, what kind of effort do you put into producing video?
So we've done very little of it so far. I actually, when we set up the Drip, I put together a video for, you know, introducing our magazine and whatnot, and I kind of, one of my projects for the next month or so is to revisit that video, because I went down the rabbit hole of like, I'm gonna come, like I said, I didn't have, like I had the vision, I didn't actually have any of the material yet, so I spent a lot of time comping stuff up in Photoshop, you know, just kind of like, here's what this is gonna look like, and it was like very precious and whatnot, and I feel like I kind of lost track of that narrative that you were talking about, right? Like I went down into the weeds and I was like, it's gonna be paper and full color and the big and coffee table and wonderful, and I kind of forgot to kind of hone in on that narrative of why Fireside exists, what Fireside is for, and the value that we're going to be providing with this new magazine, right? So, and also, like, I hadn't actually touched After Effects in, you know, 3 years, so I was like, oh, I'm back in the saddle, I'm, you know, playing around with this thing, so I kind of went down that rabbit hole. It's very easy to just do these very long-winded things and kind of like put it out there, when really what you're doing is you're writing an ad, you're making an ad. So like, keep it short, you know, keep it, you know, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes max, you know, and that's it. Just keep it, you know, keep it short.
Yeah, I actually went to college for filmmaking, so when I do videos, I definitely, making the audio and the video sync up is really important. But yeah, just making sure it's technically very smooth, keep it short, yeah, because nobody really wants to sit there and watch 10 minutes of you saying the same thing over and over, because it is basically an ad, so, you know, you don't really want to sit there for 10-15 minutes watching this ad when you can get the same amount of information much more succinctly in like 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. And yeah, just, you know, you can keep it simple, professional, and very polished fairly easily now with technology. So I think having video is great, and just making sure that all the elements work together is important.
I did mine on my phone. I put my phone on a bar stool on the kitchen table. Because the kitchen table, I know from doing selfies, has the best light, and I picked the time of day that tends to have the best light. I wrote a script. I had the script right below the phone so that I could see it. I practiced it, and then I had a little bit more of the script over here so that I could talk to that as if I were having a conversation, and then I can carefully look over here as if I were considering while I continue to read off the script, and then I come back to this script.
Scripts are
A real
awesome.
pro.
So, but I recorded it multiple times until I found one that looked natural. But it is scripted. It is on this phone, and I put on makeup and did that. Most of the work was in the script, and then just doing it multiple times. When I do, so I do video puppetry as well. For that, I will set up a camera and monitor situation because my needs are different, and also because my job is a puppeteer. And so if that looks bad, there's another thing that we say, that people will judge you by the weakest piece in your portfolio. So those I cannot afford to look like are done on my phone. But my phone is they're really good these days. I have other problems with doing video on the phone for puppetry, but that's why no one is hiring me as a meat actor, which is our derogatory term for fleshies. Fleshies, plushies. So I use a plushie, but no one hires me as a fleshie ever. So I have to sound good because I'm an audiobook narrator. My words have to be good because I'm a writer. My puppetry has to be good. Everything else, it's about, hey, this is me. You're not hiring me as a videographer. You have a different situation though, because that's what you do. You're selling a magazine. It's a different situation.
Like I do have a videographer reel, which is completely different because it is showing off a specific skill and it's not in any way related to what I'm doing on like Patreon or Kickstarter at this point.
What? I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to share that on Kickstarter, we added a feature called Kickstarter Live that lets you stream directly from your Kickstarter page. And we either have added or will soon add that same thing to Drip. The people can comment, talk to each other, do Q&A, so that hopefully will be a different way to engage with your audience, and also a platform for different rewards that are sort of seamless to fulfill.
One other bit of advice that I wanted to add to the video conversation. It's simple. Unfortunately, it's not entirely straightforward, but it's essential. Caption your videos for accessibility. Yes. And one of I'm a UX web designer by trade, and one of the things that we say is, you focus on accessibility first, because when you focus on accessibility features, you're not just serving the crowd that needs those features. You're also actually serving your regular users as well. In the case of captions, they obviously help people who can't hear. But also, think about the way that you consume video on your computer or on your devices. You're maybe not just sitting there, leaning back like you're on a couch. You're maybe doing a bunch of other different things, and being able to read what's happening on that video is really helpful to get your message across. So, captions.
I think we have time for one more question. Here. Great. So the question was, as you're starting a page on Drip or Patreon, how much content do you preload? And then how much do you tweet about that preloaded content as you're launching it to the world?
I used the really handy, very useful onboarding packet that Drip sends out, which is fantastic and very detailed. So I had I think 3 sample posts of the kinds of content that I would do, as well as a "Hello, this is me" post. And then for the first week, I think I sent out something new every day so that people would be able to see what I was doing, and it also gave me a different talking point when I was doing social media, rather than just "I've got a Drip page." So it gave me different things to talk about. And that's really one of the things. It's like, people don't mind if you have the same topic of conversation as long as you're saying different things about it.
In terms of frequency, that will vary, and you know, what's appropriate for me might not be appropriate for Mary or for Merc or for you. You know, we've run the spectrum. We do, you know, we're currently in a fallow period right now. We're kind of trying to figure out what our strategy for that stuff is going to be. So our frequency is very low. And you can see it in our engagements. You know, when we tweet more, when we get the message out there multiple times a day, don't forget that you live in a world with time zones, which is something that's really it's really powerful, because you can set a tweet to go out at midnight your time, and maybe you're catching people, you know, on the other side of the world that will really engage with this stuff that wouldn't have seen it otherwise. So you want to play around with different frequencies, different strategies for even tweeting the same thing multiple times, right, over time. Or posting, rather, not just tweeting.
So I think that looks like all the time we have. I'm going to be here if anyone wants to chat with me further, and I really appreciate all of the insights from our amazing panelists. Just one quick moment, where can people find you, and what should they do once they find you? That sounded weird. What should they back or read?
Well,
take this away from myself.
You can find basically everything is linked from my webpage, which is amercrustad.com. And if you search on Kickstarter for robot dinosaurs, you should be able to bring up ours pretty easily.
MaryRobinetteKowal.com will get you pretty much everywhere, and usually most of my social media is at Mary Robinette, which, just if I can do a public service announcement, which I mean me, Mary Robinette. I am from the South. That is part of my first name. It is never, ever part of my surname. Kowal is the surname. Thank you for letting me have that. Basically, you should give me money so that I can lecture you about my name. But I will teach you about writing or puppets or anything you want to know.
We're at firesidefiction.com, and we're on Drip at d.rip/fireside. And corner me anywhere, and I will tell you that I am so freaking excited about this print magazine that we're putting out. Like, it's not to be braggy, like I was saying before, it's like nothing else that's currently available in the short fiction genre market, and I'm really excited about it. And go check it out. I think a lot of people are gonna like it.
Thank you so much.